for watching Numbskull News. And today, the ACC. I'm trying to make this very clear to all of you people. Especially, a lot of you guys, a lot of people out there know what's up with the ACC. And I get there's some passionate ACC fans and they don't want to see their conference go away. I get it. But stop living in denial. Come 2025, that's your expiration date. For February 1st, we know the date. February 1st, 2025, it's over. ESPN is not renewing, people. They could have renewed years ago. They could have secured your media rights deal till 2036. They haven't done it. Why haven't they done it? Because they're not going to. They even got it extended. That's one of the problems that FSU has with the ACC, that Jim Phillips had extended their time to make that decision to February 1st of 2025. So they could have done this forever. Even got an extension. They haven't done it. And I'm going to tell you why they haven't done it. Just in case I haven't been clear. ESPN, they're not losing money, but they're not really growing either. I get this from CNBC. You can go on YouTube, type in CNBC, ESPN, hit enter in the search field. You'll find the video that CNBC did, and they did a great job. They usually do pretty damn good little mini documentaries or little mini stories, kind of like 60-minute style stuff. Really good. I enjoy watching it. It's one of the few mainstream media things I do enjoy. It's like the last little bastion of real journalism that goes on. And they did this episode on ESPN, kind of breaking it down where they are. Now, Disney has been losing money out the ass, parent company of ESPN. ESPN is no longer growing like they used to in their heyday. That growth has slowed way down. So even though they still make a nice profit, the business isn't growing anymore. At least not at the rate they want it to. It's a very small rate compared to what it was. So that's a problem. They've had layoffs. Doesn't it kind of surprise you that they didn't try to get in there and bid for the Big Ten? They did, but the number got too high. They didn't want to outbid NBC or CBS, so they let them have it. What? That's crazy. That the SEC will have no rights to the Big Ten. That's nuts. So think about this, folks. The Pac-12, they pulled out of that bitch. They didn't want to do business with them. And that's when they still had Oregon, Washington, everybody. Except for USC and UCLA. LA market was gone. They used that as an excuse to get out of that. Pay for a few programs to come over to the Big 12. And they save a lot of money. All right, so let's do the math. It's even easier math because they are the sole media rights partner of the ACC, just like the SEC. All right, they're the dominant partner in the Big 12, but not the sole partner. That's also, they have a deal with Fox in that. They share it with Fox, I should say. But let me break this down a little bit. You got to look at the teams that are going to get left out. All right. I'm just going to throw names out there. If you're in that fan base, this is just hypothetical. No one knows who's going to get left out. But let's just, let's go with Stanford, Cal, SMU, Wake Forest, Boston College, Syracuse. And I'm going to go ahead and put in Georgia Tech, but to me, they're on the bubble. So this is just for shits and giggles. That's seven teams right there. $30 million per. That's round about what ESPN pays these ESPN schools per school. That's saving $210 million a year. Okay. And let's just say, just for an example, Florida State and Clemson. Now, a lot of people say Florida State goes to the Big Ten, but let's just say Florida State and Clemson go to the SEC, where now ESPN has to double up their pay because, let's say they come in as full members, no halfway stuff, just full members into the SEC. Well, now ESPN has to double their pay. So it's now, let's say, $60 million per. Okay? So what you do is you take that $210 million. Now let's subtract 60 off of that. What are you left with? That's savings of $150 million a year for ESPN. But wait, it doesn't stop there, because we got other schools. We got the Louisvilles and the Pitts, NC States, Virginia Tech, Duke, UNC, who knows, and Miami. That's what's left. Let's say Miami goes to the Big Ten. Well, that's money off the books. That's money off the books for ESPN. So that's another $30 million in savings. So let's go ahead and add that to the 150. Now you're back up to $180 million in savings. Now there's UNC. Don't know about that. All right, but let's count it up. Let's, Louisville. You got NC State, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Duke, UNC. Maybe it's not UNC. Maybe it's Georgia Tech. Whatever it is. I'm not trying to have that argument just yet. But let's say 6 schools. As many as 6 of those schools get thrown over to the Big 12. That's $20 million per. So they're saving $10 million per school. All right. So that's another $60 million. So you add that to the 180. So now they're saving $240 million just on some rough math a year by pulling out of that ACC contract, shifting a couple of schools to the SEC, and then shifting way more over to the Big 12 and letting the others do whatever they're going to do. Okay, so that's $240 million a year they save, starting in 2028, the year of the look-in for the CFP. Now, but you're talking 2036, right? Right? If they opt in? Well, that's $240 million times, what is that? 8 years? 8 seasons? Now, I don't have a calculator. Oh, hold on. I don't have a calculator. I do have a phone. Let's pull up the number on what that is. Oh, let's see here. 240 000 000. That's 240 million. Times, well, let's see, 2008. Let me make sure I get this. Let me get the math right. All right, I only have a GED, so let me get the math right. So that would be starting in 2028 season, is what I'm assuming. All right, 2028, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. That's actually 9 seasons. 9 seasons. But I'm just going to do it at 8, just in case it starts in 2020. Some of this stuff is just wacky, right? So we're just going to do 8. You're going to save $240 million for 8 seasons, 8 years. Times 8 equals $1.9 billion. So unless I have my math totally screwed up, I could. But that's a savings of $1.9 billion a year. $1.9 billion. Not to mention, ESPN would make money with FSU and Clemson in the SEC. That's way more viewership to the conference that's already got a ton of viewership. That's premium matchups like a son of a bitch. So, what makes you think that ESPN is going to opt in? They're going to opt in and pay an additional 1.9 billion over an 8-year period when they don't have to, people. They're not going to. They're trying to save money. Well, 1.9 billion is a shit ton of money. Because you're looking at the lower half of the ACC, you no longer have to pay your two hugest brands. Go to they may not even go to the SEC. Let's say the SEC may only get one. It may even be more savings because FSU may go to the Big Ten. And the SEC may only take Clemson. Maybe they only take Clemson and Miami. I mean, lo and behold, maybe they even take UNC. I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. But any of those scenarios, they are saving shit tons of money. Because for every school that goes to the Big 12, for every school that goes to the Big 12, they're saving $10 or $11 million a year for every single school. Because right now they're paying them $30. But over in the Big 12, Fox pays $10 to $11 million of that total media rights deal. So we know, and just in case you haven't figured it out, people, you're talking well over, from what my rough math is, and that's worst case scenario, that they take two teams into the SEC. That's $1.9 billion worth of savings. Because there's going to be, 7 schools that they're just going to stop paying. Maybe they take some of that savings, that $1.9 billion, maybe they put them in a G5 conference or something gets worked out that way. But ESPN is looking to save money, and that's a monster truckload of money to save. That's a monster truckload to save. So the ones that are worth their investment of $20 million a year, hello, Big 12. Now, if the school just doesn't want to make money anymore, if they want to make G5 money or they want to go independent, ESPN won't have a problem with that. Fine. Bye-bye. Kick rocks. You're gone. We don't have to pay you. You have to think about how this is going. You got to think about it from ESPN's standpoint, people. And if you think they're going to come back around and give you the same media rights deal with no FSU, no Clemson, no Miami, possibly no UNC, in what world are you going to get that money? There's no Oregon. There's no Washington. All right? I'm sorry. But Virginia Tech or Virginia, I didn't even count Virginia in this mess. So my math is still off. I told you I wasn't a professional. But you get my meaning. Well over $1 billion. Well over $1.5 billion. I don't give a damn. Virginia, Georgia Tech, whoever goes where. I mean, they're saving well over $1 billion a year for that time period. Not a year, but for that time period. For that 8 years. From the 2028 season to the 2036, but 8 or 9 years. Well over $1 billion in total savings. Y'all don't get it. Y'all don't. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to wake you up. I'm tired of seeing this crap in the comments. Like, the reconstituted ACC. There will be no reconstituted ACC. Not on a Power 4 level, not on an autonomous level. The CFP sure as hell isn't going to recognize you as an autonomous conference, even if NCAA, you know, graces you with autonomous status after you rebuild with American schools or Conference USA schools or whatever. Even if that happens, the CFP is not going to recognize that. And then will a media company, will they look at that? Is your evaluation going to be $30 million per? No. It's going to be well under that. So of course you're going to lose Big 12 schools because of why? Money, playoff access, guaranteed playoff access. Yeah. You're going to go and those teams are going to take their candy asses to the Big 12, just like Utah did, just like Arizona and Arizona State and Colorado did. I don't look. I understand you're passionate. I understand you want to be loyal and you love this conference. Understand the ACC has changed many times throughout the years. But you're saying it's going to die. Essentially, it's not going to be what it once was. It once was thought of as a powerhouse conference, a Power 5 conference. Big time. But the time is growing short now. Those times are almost up. You got under a year. And then we know damn well for sure. I mean, I already know. There's just too much money for ESPN to save by not opting in. It's in their best interest. Even if ESPN would want to re-up, Disney sure as hell doesn't. They don't want to waste money. They're like, hey, take the most valuable brands, take the ones that are worth $20 million a year and throw them to the Big 12. You know, we don't need to pay for a fourth freaking conference. Screw that. Consolidate. That's what big time multi-billion-dollar international businesses do when their growth shrinks. They consolidate. They wipe out whole parts of their business to save the others. Save the money on this. Well, they're kind of redundant. Get rid of them. That's what they're going to do. Why pay for Cal? Why pay for SMU? And yes, with that pro rata, ESPN still has to pay SMU, still have to pay Cal, they still have to pay Stanford the $30 million a year. They have to. Why do you think they added them? So they can take that money, bundle it, and give it to Florida State, and give it to Clemson to shut them up. But that's still not enough money. That's still not enough. People, I'm sorry, that conference is going away. It's going away. Well, and I understand. You're like, why does the Big 12 get to survive and we don't? The Pac 12 people are still asking themselves the same question. Why? Well, in that case, it's because we took the deal. You didn't want to go along with ESPN. You didn't want to listen to ESPN. Therefore, it was done. I'm not saying it's the same way in the ACC. I'm sure Jim Phillips and all those other brands after FSU, after Clemson, would be willing to listen. Hey, we're already making this money. We're happy to do it till 2036. I'm sure Wake Forest and Georgia Tech, maybe even Louisville, maybe Pitt, all those schools may be happy to stay together and make that money where they're at. Because moving is a bitch. It's a big change. A lot of those guys don't want to do it. A lot of the Pac-12 schools didn't want to do it. I get it. And if you say that, you'd be right to say that. It's not about where they would like to be or where they'd like to do. The problem is, what is the ACC's next media rights deal without Florida State, without Clemson? What does that deal look like? I mean, maybe ESPN would come back around and offer you $20 million a school. Maybe. Maybe. Because I'm sorry, after Florida State and Clemson, really after Miami as well, there is no Oregon. There's no Washington. There's only a handful that are on par with Utah or Colorado or Arizona or Arizona State. Most of those guys are Oregon States and Washington States. Good programs, solid schools. They got value. But unfortunately for the big media companies, they're expendable. At least on the power, whatever, 4, 3 level, they're expendable. Just like Oregon State and Washington State, they're expendable. I'm a Big 12 fan. I wouldn't mind Oregon State and Washington State coming into the Big 12. ESPN would. Fox would. Therefore, the rest of the Big 12, well, if they ain't going to pay for it, we can't do it. Because no one's going to take money out of their pocket so that Oregon State and Washington State have a home with us. It's not the way it's going to work. So, I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. And you can not believe me. You can live in denial all you want forever. That's fine. That's up to you. But you can absolutely look up all this information that I'm laying on you right now. And if you don't come to the same conclusion, it's your own bias. And I get it. I'm a biased person too. I got my biases, of course. But keep in mind, I don't have anything against the ACC at all. There's nothing personal. None of that. Now, does the ACC going down help my conference? It does. It does. It doesn't help the Big Ten. It doesn't help the SEC. It doesn't help those two. They already got their money. They already got their CFP money. They got it all. All right, but does it help the Big 12 for the other power conference to go away? Absolutely it does. In a lot of different ways. So you can look at it that way and say, oh, that's why you were saying all. That's why you're saying, well, you would have a point. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. None of that means I'm wrong. It doesn't explain why ESPN hadn't opted in yet. I mean, if they really loved the ACC and saw a barrel of cash at the end of that rainbow, they would have opted in already. Because they could have opted in when there was no lawsuit for Florida State or Clemson, when there was no public outcry from those two schools, when everything was hunky-dory, everything was fine, everything was settled, ACC is what it was. They still didn't opt in. They still got an extension to opt in to make that decision. But here's the deal, folks, that they're not going to opt in, and then that's it. All right. The rest of you guys, whoever's left, you may be able to stay together and pull out an Apple deal. Maybe. But keep in mind, that Apple deal was based on Oregon and Washington being in there. No one in there is getting Oregon and Washington ratings. No one. Louisville does a little bit. You know, they can get close when they have good years, but when they have bad years, they fade down. I'm sorry. You don't have the Oregon brand in there to even be attractive to Apple. But there's a few brands that could do well in the Big 12 and do have the value for the Big 12. And I believe ESPN and Fox would want in the Big 12. It just won't be everybody. And there's too much money to save for ESPN to opt in. It doesn't make sense. Think logically. Think critically. At least try to think before you want to comment in my shit. And telling me the same old stories that the pack used to say. Well, no one's going to the Big 12 because we're worth just as much. No, you're not. You're not worth what the Big 12's worth. Especially without Florida State and without Clemson. Sorry. It's not even close. Not even close. So, it's the way it's going to go. All right? Don't hate the player, hate the game. Anyway. Thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye.